as human beings, we experience a lot of directives that expose us to a vastness of unnameable truth that we call Supreme Being. For most of us, we sense it as hidden. And some of us believe that there is a journey to find it. And part of the directives include phrases like, "Seek and ye shall find." "Knock and it shall be opened unto you. Ask and ye shall receive." But here's the part that's really important. You are being asked to do something. In that equation, there is an I and a thou. There is the human being and the Supreme Being. There are lots of teachings that tell you that it's all one. The human being and the Supreme Being are one. And there is great truth in that. But it doesn't seem to avail you much of anything if you don't know it. If you haven't discovered that. And you can't discover things if you don't go on the journey. If you don't take out the map, look at the rule book, figure out your relationship to the discovery of something supreme. It's very possible you discount the total idea of Supreme Being. We call it God, we call it cosmic awareness, cosmic consciousness, totality, the absolute, thousands of names for something that is in many ways unknowable and for some people, I think, non-existent. But it can come calling. In many ways, life is that Supreme Being calling us, showing itself to us every second, every millisecond of every day. We are surrounded by, touched by, experienced by the self of selves, the Supreme Being of our own being. We are truly never absent from it. It is never absent from us, not for 1/1,000,000th of a second. And yet we walk around blinded, lost in our separate identity, totally wrapped up in our personhood, in our drama, in our narrative, in our fear, in our doubt, in our ambition, on and on and on and on and on. We can be so blinded that really the whole experience of life, of being itself, never occurs to us. We just need to get that job. We just need to find a way to make another $100,000 or $1 million or $10 or whatever it is we need to make. We just need to get the girl, get the guy, find satisfaction. And we do this in this incredibly blinded, self-serving, smug, self-absorbed way, and miss everything. We just miss the totality completely. But it does come knocking. And it basically says, hey, you. Hey. Psst. And it happens in these funny little moments where you suddenly feel the universe dialoguing with you. Like you have a great idea for a screenplay. Or, you put on, what's it called, random search on your iPhone, and every song you love comes on in exactly the right order, and you go, it's like so acknowledging. Of course, they're your songs and you pick them, but they're there, and they're speaking to you in a particular way, and you just know that you're cared for. Somebody looks at you. An email comes from someone you haven't expected, and it just says, I really love you, or something like that. And these little twinges of something open up in us, and they're so sweet and beautiful. The easiest access to what I'm talking about is ice cream. And I talk about it a lot, because one lick and you go, oh my God. Of course, 4 gallons later, you're sick of it. But that first taste and the second taste and all of those moments are such an invitation to something so wonderful. The outer universe that we live in is a emanation of, a manifestation of, a concretization of the infinite. And it builds itself into visibility and tangibility via you. You exist to construct it, to produce more life in it, if you want to do that, to create beauty or to destroy. There are many forms of the deity, if you will. There's the Shiva, which tears it apart, and there's Brahma, which builds it, and there's Vishnu, which preserves it. But then there's Buddha telling us it's all impermanent, so why bother on some level? But that's a good question. Buddha doesn't say why bother, but let's answer that question. Why bother? Well, one reason is you're here. Why? Well, some people ask that question. A lot of people don't ask that question. Some people aren't given the luxury of answering that question. They just have to dig in the fields and grow the crops and eat. You guys are not in that situation. You can still go to the supermarket, Safeway, or Whole Foods or whatever you go to, and it's right there for you if you can get the cash to pay for it. The universe is so available. The gifts of the universe are so constant. The influx is so powerful. And most of you go, oh God, they've just raised the price on bread. And there's no even awareness of what it means that somebody baked a loaf of bread for you and wrapped it in plastic and put it on a shelf and made it available. So all you have to do is take it out of the refrigerator and put some butter on it and love it and enjoy it. No idea of what went into creating wheat in the first place, growing it in the ground, turning it into flour. There's no sense of that. We're just walking around like, oh God, they raised the price of bread. Or whatever it is. The lack of appreciation, the lack of consciousness, the lack of awareness that we bring to the day-to-day life is shocking, and deeply, deeply a sense of no appreciation of the magnitude of what life has gone through to give you the degree of comfort that you have. Of course, most of you are thinking, but what about the fact that my hip is out? that I have indigestion, I can't sleep at night, all the negatives, all the burdens of being physical, all the stuff that makes it hard in life becomes for many people the totality of the focus, this kind of misery of being. The human being is not even part of the equation, it's just the burdensome being of your life. And here we are in the miraculous, truly miraculous manifestation of something out of nothing that is in a way created for you. Who else is it created for? Why has it spent this, if we deal with just scientific terms, why has it spent the last 14 billion years trying to make something that gives you a bed at night? Why? Who are you? Who deserves this? Why does it go to so much effort and spend so much time making you, at least most nights, comfortable, or days, providing water, providing food, providing sunlight, providing air, you name it. It's so extraordinary, and we don't witness it, we don't acknowledge it, we don't know it, we take it for granted, and we get pissed by all these little tiny nothings. Why is this going on? Why is this happening? It's a good question. Some people never ask it. If you begin to ask the questions, answers come. If you ask, ye shall receive. Knock, and it will be opened unto you. Seek, and you will find. But if you don't knock, you don't seek, you don't ask, it doesn't bother. It doesn't bother. Does it care? Totally. Absolutely. But does it make the first move? Well, kind of. It gave you this. What's your job? What's your responsibility in all of this? Are you supposed to be here just as a beneficiary? Just give it to me, give it to me, give it to me, give me more, I want that? Any of you have kids who act like that? You want to slap them across the head. What a horrible way to live. You got a responsibility here. You got to do something in the equation. You really do. And most people don't. They just complain. They're inconvenienced by life. Endless inconvenience. I have so much to do. Where am I going to meditate? How am I going to do this? How am I going to do that? Nobody has time for it. And life just crunches you and crunches you and crunches you until you are squashed into nothing. And you leave this world having not seen it, having not tasted it, having not enjoyed it, having not embraced it, having learned nothing. And in a way, end of ride. Except there is no end, and there's no beginning. And if you had bothered to ask about it during your life, you would have learned that. If you had bothered to make the effort to pursue the great mystery of being, you would have begun to discover one truth after another, after another. The first big truth is that nothing you discover outside in the world will last, because it all ends. It's impermanent. That's one of the great truths. Everything you get in life will get taken away. Terribly frustrating. And also, it's so frustrating we don't think about it. We go for the next million or the next 100,000 or the next whatever it is we're going for, thinking that will take care of it, but it will not. What is worth going for in this life? What's worth reaching for? What's worth having in this life that can't be taken away? Well, for some people, there's no such thing. Life and death is the end, and that's it. However, the world is outer and inner. How do you know there's an inner world? Because it has thoughts in it, it has feelings and emotions and tangibility. There is an inner reality to all of our being that is vibrantly alive to us, but we don't name it, we don't understand it. It's just how we experience the world through these incredible inside awarenesses and emotions that have to do with what's happening on the outside. Those emotions and feelings are doorways into something more. They're very powerful. They really have a capacity to introduce you to what's within, as opposed to just what's without. And there appears to be, and there is, a dance between these two spaces. The emotions of relating to the outer life, thoughts about the outer life, all of this stuff comes into play all the time. But if you redirect it inward, which is the whole goal and idea of meditation, if you draw your attention inward, it starts to go to these places that you would not have known about if you hadn't sat still and reached inside yourself for something that is the source of feeling, the source of thought, the source of doing. There is this directive inside you. There's this fundamental empowerment inside you that you can't get if you don't try, or if you don't even have a clue that it's there. But the clue is out there. I'm telling you right now, clue. There's a world in here, okay? World inside, go there. And not only is it a world, it's unbelievably accessible. It's unbelievably engaging. It wants you to come and discover it. It's here for a reason. And all you have to do is sit still, be quiet, breathe, enter into it. Rudy would say, ask for help to surrender, meaning get quiet, get rid of your mind and the noise. Just go inside and watch what happens. And you will feel, as I described to those of you who take the class, the first thing you discover is, welcome. Come on in. Welcome home. Have a seat. Put your feet up. Relax. Can I give you a pillow? Glad you're here. Cup of tea. You just sit and you snuggle and you get really cozy. And as you relax in this coziness, this energy just starts to waft out. It's almost dreamlike, only it's bigger than dreamlike because it's not unconscious. It's very vivid. And you just start to expand an awareness of feeling that just ripples out outside of your body confinement, outside the walls of you, outside of everything you knew to be defining, and it just keeps going. And it's so big, it's so powerful, and it's within. And then if you go really, really, really deep, especially if you go into your heart, you start to discover, if you're lucky, this thing that I call the portal. Goes, and then you're totally beyond personhood, totally beyond me, mine, I. You've gone into this space that has always been there, and you know the minute you enter it that it is infinite and eternal, and the doorway was in you. And when you go into that space, the you that you've been so involved in and so caring about and so involved in every day starts to become so minuscule. It's so tiny. You become this vastness of being, and you find yourself on a ride into something you may define as supreme being. And once you enter into it, it has this lifting up quality. It takes you and lifts you and lifts you and lifts you, and the more you let go of your fear of being lifted, the more you let go of who you think you were or what you were about or how important your life was, the more you let it go, it just keeps going. And you just go, you don't even want to have a thought. You don't want to have one thought because it will disturb the magnitude of what's happening. Feeling is all there is, and it's not feeling that you're having, it's feeling that is the substance and the content of being. And it's just hugely caring and compassionate and vast, and it just lifts whatever you were into itself, and you begin to go, I am that. I am that. That which is what I am. And then, with that unbelievable feeling of awareness and knowing, you come back into you, this tiny little personhood. And you look at all your dramas and all your stuff, and you look at that from not the perspective of the little you, but from yourself. and you see it for what it is. It's just stuff. It's a stupid burden of stuff. And all you do when the vastness of being resides inside the you is you just go, thank you. And you get really quiet and really still pointed. And this bigness, this vastness, this eternity of all that is wafts through you like light, like love, like caring, like compassion. It just, and it goes out to anyone around you. You become a little bit like a beacon of light. And if you really get out of the way, more than a beacon, you become a vast exponent of light. You are the light. And I'm not talking about this person and that person and not you. I'm talking about you. You. Specifically you. And if you're going but, you're in the wrong place. There is zero but. Zero but. There is only the opportunity in this lifetime to make this journey, to seek, to knock, to ask, to rise into this space that will take you, literally take whatever it is you think you are and carry it into infinite wonder. No explanations. It doesn't tell you what it is. It doesn't know what it, I don't think it knows what it is. It just is. It is. It's using you to figure out what it is. Every one of you is one of the little microscopes looking at it and going, oh, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. It's all of it. It's all of this. And it's going, oh, oh, oh. And you come back and you're just like, oh. And all you want to do is share it. And most people don't want to hear a thing you're saying. Oh, that again. Oh, my God. Don't you stop talking about that stuff? It's so boring. God, get real. You know that? I mean, I have friends who do not want to hear me say a word about anything I'm telling you. And I get it, so I don't say it. I just sit with them, and you know what I do with them? I am present with them, and I love them. And I talk about Donald Trump, and I talk about cars, and I talk about movies, and I talk about the TV shows. I do the talk, but it is coming from a place of infinite, eternal beauty. And that's what you do. You dialogue with people on their terms, but as love and consciousness and light, not as somebody who's caught in their own drama. The journey that I have been experiencing, which I share with you, is really what I'm describing here. This uplifted, higher connectivity used to be occasional, and I would lose it. And I would go, what did I do wrong? And then I would start hearing voices, you're not doing anything wrong. Mostly it's not sustainable. Mostly this vastness is so enormous and great that the body-mind construct cannot endure it for very long. You have to grow. You have to grow in capacity. You have to build the muscle inside yourself that will allow you to hold, manifest, and be and reflect what you are. That's the work. That's what we're doing. Some people do it effortlessly, some people not so effortlessly, some people with grace, some people not so gracefully. But you find a way to be you, to be yourself. When it goes away, it's almost sometimes like a gift, saying, shh, shh, it's okay. It needs to relieve you of the massiveness of its truth. And you may feel an absence, but trust me, the trust will be so enormous that you know it will return anytime it's needed. that you are an endless yes to being. Yes. On every level to being, you are yes. And if it goes away, you don't go, oh, what did I do wrong? You just go, yes. You know it has your back. It gets you. It knows you. It will be there for you whenever you need it or whenever it needs you. The you and the it, the I and the thou have become one dance, one incredible dance. And the extraordinary thing is it just doesn't end, and it only expands. It only gets bigger, and you don't even understand how could it get bigger? How could it be more? How can one experience that much? No answer. No answer. But it can be done, and I can tell you it can be done because it's being done. And because it's being done here, I am deeply, deeply alerted to the idea that it can be done everywhere. And that if it's not being done, it's because you're choosing not to do it. You are choosing to be ignorant. You are choosing to be distracted. You are choosing to be bored. You're choosing to be driven. You're choosing to be anything but this. Why one would choose anything but this, I can no longer understand. But I know everybody does it. I know I did it. And because I did it, because during my middle years, I was completely about supporting my family, making money, having a reputation, having a career, having all this stuff. The only thing is, and you should know this, that during that entire drive toward achieving and getting and acquiring and having all this stuff, I sat every day. I meditated 20 minutes, 30 minutes, once, twice a day. And I kept this gold thread of connectivity there the entire time, all through my middle years, all through my child-rearing years. I don't care what happened, I found time before the day began to sit, to connect, to feel the weather report for the psychic universe I was entering that day. I connected. That connection has been rewarded, if you will, by something beyond connection. Something that reveals itself to have always been there. All I was doing was realizing what was always there. And I realized it every day. That's meaningful. Yes, you're going to get lost. Yes, you're going to get confused. Yes, life's going to take over. It's going to do all of this stuff. But then, secret upon secrets, it ends. Your career ends. Your livelihood ends. Your life begins to fall apart, literally. It comes to an end. That was in the books from day one. Everything you acquired, you're going to have to give away, or they're going to take it away. They're going to burn it. It's going to be gone. Everything you thought was important, gone. I mean, not everything. If you've had children, they're still going on. If you've written a movie, it's still playing maybe somewhere, maybe. You know, I mean, there's stuff that's still happening, but you're done. You are done. And in that doneness, you have to begin to let it all go. And as you let it all go, what you discover, surprise of surprises, is that inner space that you've been holding on to all of these years, reaching into, digging into, talking about, thinking about, meditating for, it's still there. Everything else starts to fall away, but this doesn't go anywhere. It's still there. Now maybe there's this sense that, well, when the body dies, all of this stuff will go away, but you know when you've gone through the portal, it ain't going nowhere. And it is you. It is you. There is nothing but that. It's all you have ever been. This whole big parade of drama and dreamlike activity and vibrant connectivity to other people and to your body and to the life and to sexuality and to, joy and misery and all that stuff, gone. Oh well, what was that? What was that? This old age thing, which is really fascinating, and I've got to recommend it if you can make it to old age. It's liberating. It's liberating. Your body's not going to like it. Your patterns are all going to change. Nothing's going to be predictable. There's a lot of awfulness about it. But there is this thing of going, where are the distractions? I mean, you can get them. You've got enough television to keep you busy to the last second. But there really is an opportunity to walk the streets, to sit quietly, to enter that space inside you where that welcoming occurs, where they say, put your feet up, lay back, here's a pillow, be, just be. And you sit there going, wow. And you don't even get angry at yourself for not having seen it before. You feel like you've earned the right to be here. You've earned the right to sit back and open and luxuriate in what you have always been. That's the joy of this life. The idea of making the first move, of asking, knocking, seeking. You take that responsibility and the universe floods you with answers. It gives you discovery. It lets you find. You find what you're looking for. Rudy always had this sort of annoyance at people who are professional seekers. He says the idea is not to keep seeking, the idea is to find. The reality is, this is how you find. And the finding really is an internal process. The thing you will find outside you is singular, that it all goes away. The thing you find inside you is not singular. Well, it is singular. It is forever. It is forever. And ever, and ever. The mind, the body, has a hard time with forever. But the space within the portal relishes it. It relishes it. It just goes, how does one get that lucky? How are you so lucky that you have eternal being? That you have supreme being? How did that happen? That question's, the how and the why, never be answered ever. But the mere fact of its being asked is the sharing of the wonder and the mystery of who and what we are. So, don't tell me you don't have time to meditate. Don't tell me you don't have time to ask. You don't have time to knock. You don't have time to seek. Don't tell me that. Because that's laziness, because it's ignorance, it's complete immersion in your own drama and dreams, and none of them will produce results. None of them will give you what you want. You may make $100 million. You may have the house of your dreams. You may have a reputation beyond reputations. You may be the best thing that ever happened in the world on some level, and it will all get taken away. And of course, your mind will say, well, I left things behind. I left my work. I left happy people. And that's fine. But you are going. Just know that. You don't take the house, you don't take the artwork, you don't take the whatever it is you think you're taking. Even your kids have already left you. They're on to their own dramas and their own things. So you don't get to take anything. Once you really know that, go to the thing you have. Go to the thing you are. Go to the thing you can take with you, which is in fact isn't taken anywhere and isn't with you. It is you. It is you. Go there. Go there. Sit quietly every day and take a step forward. Go deeper, move inside, find who you are. It's really interesting at the end because, as you get older, all these people you've known are no longer that much in the equation. And some of them who are in the equation you wish were not in the equation. So what you really have to do is, where do you find relief from all this? You are the relief. You are it. You are all you've got. Learn to love that. Learn to love who you are. And I promise you, if you dig deep enough and reach into these spaces I'm describing within yourself, you will fall in love with you. You will be enough. You will be more than you can imagine. You already are. Realizing that is everything, and that's what this practice is about. So, take responsibility, seek, ask, knock. See what happens. Thank you. Any questions? It's called asking. seeking, knocking.
So I attended this Dia de los Muertos yesterday at the cemetery. There was a big manifestation of honoring the dead, and there were thousands of people yesterday. And it moved me to see how people remember the dead. As you're saying, we need to be in the now, and we need to celebrate who we are, rather than the death. But there was a place that really moved me. It was a picture of a couple in different stages of their life, and they are of course dead. And they say, together they wrote the best chapters of their lives. That really moved me, in that they were so present for each other.
This manifestation we're in can be so beautiful, so wonderful, and we are writing it, but it has a lot of elements in it. It has elements of melodrama, ridiculous storytelling elements that keep happening, and it can move into literature where it's really deeply felt and experienced. We write our lives in some way if we take control. So many people's lives are written sort of for them by stupid moves that they make, indecision, not trusting something. There's so many terrible things that go on in people's lives that just don't add up. And then your job is, you can't affect everything, but it's how you live it. It's how you interpret it. It's how you make it the story of your life, whether it becomes literature or melodrama. And if it becomes literature, you turn everything into something that has quality, meaning, insight, value to you. Because everything that's happening is happening for your best interest, really. And one of the things you learn as this light comes streaming through you is that it is giving you every opportunity to become awake, every opportunity to have love, every opportunity to be successful. It's giving you all of these things. It's working for you, with you, around you every day. It doesn't deliver on your terms, it delivers on its terms. And at some point, what you wake up to inside is it gave you everything you needed. It gave you everything. And a good relationship is one of the greatest gifts ever that can happen. And being around the dead is a really good way to remember, this is what happens, And two people who journey together toward death, and had a good life, that's wonderful storytelling.
You mentioned one question. You mentioned a very specific reaction to going inward, which was the fear of that expansion and that fear of that connection. How do you deal with that?
It's really interesting. Lao Tzu said every journey begins with one step. When I was a kid, I was terrified of who I was, and I was terrified of the world around me. But because I had blown my brains out with LSD, in a way, and saw that there was a big universe out there that I never imagined, and then I realized that there were great teachings in the East that might speak to me, I gave up the solidity of a job at that point at NBC as a film editor, and I did the most terrifying thing for me imaginable. I began on a journey all by myself. I had never done it. I sent everything I had back to my parents. I made just enough money working on, they gave me a job doing the obituary for LBJ and Charles de Gaulle. I made enough money on these two jobs to make this journey, and I ended up saying okay, and I bought a plane ticket to Greece, which is where I started, and I just began this incremental step of having to be with myself on a journey that I didn't know where it went, but I knew it should involve Tibetans, it should involve ashrams, it should involve something to do with the Bhagavad Gita. I was exploring a world that was completely new to me, and I was completely terrified. I was a little Jewish kid from Detroit. Nobody ever talked to me about going to Asia. That talked to me about the possibility of exploring a world that I never even knew existed. It took one step, And when I sit with you and I work with you, I see this vast but, meaning but. There's a weight, there's a heaviness, there's a terror inside. And you are not the only person I experience that with in this room. Everything is fine to a certain point, and then it's because you're going to lose yourself. You're going to be unsafe. You're not going to know anything. You're going to be in uncharted territory. What do I do with that? I mean, even this. I mean, just examine that. What did it take to do that just now? It wasn't that hard, but that's what it takes to go from a protected, self-protected to this. You know, it's really fascinating. And I even watched on TV the other day, the president was doing this. I went, he's the president. Why does he have to? What's he hiding? What's he protecting? You know, you're head of the world, and yet he's terrified. You know, holding on. This is really hard. Going from this to this is the beginning of trust. The beginning of thy will be done. The beginning of I will allow this to take place. And then the drama of doing that in the face of everything. And what I discovered day by day by day is I can do this. I can do this. Not only that, it felt good. I met a girl. We had a wonderful relationship. I had food that I never ate before in Greece. I used to walk to this movie theater and watch these wonderful movies under the stars. Every day was magical. I made these incredible friends on the island that I was living on. And then I finally said, as wonderful as this is, it's not India, it's not Tibet. And I gave up all of that. And I just stuck out my thumb and I began hitchhiking to India. I'd never hitchhiked in my entire life. I was terrified of hitchhiking around America. Here I'm hitchhiking through Asia. It took something that said, I can do this, help me, day by day, day by day. And it does. But if you aren't willing to do that, the vastness of what's waiting for you will not be made visible. You will not know it. It will not come. The crazy part is, the vastness of what is waiting for you is all around you. The beauty, moment to moment to moment, of what life is always in your face. It's the bizarre fact that you and almost everyone, and me for decades, don't see it. You don't see it because you're too just lost in that stuff. This is to break you out, to free you from your you. Because the burden of life is not a burden of life, it's a burden of your own mind-created events that have locked you up, given to you from your DNA, given to you by your genetic code, given to you by decades and eons of people worrying and fearing, and God knows I understand it. You know, I just got back from Russia. You know, if you want to know what it's like to live in a society where there's an autocratic ruler that can do anything to you at any given moment and uproot your life and create awful drama, that's a country that's had nothing but that for 1,000 years or more. You go, I mean, we've had it for 9 months? And we're already seeing what that feels like. Imagine 1,000 years of that, and what it does to people, and what it does to your ancestry. And it was my ancestry that I was walking around in when I was in Russia. I felt the DNA of my family. I felt all of that stuff, and I felt so grateful that I could take a breath and be free of that. And there's a real spirituality in Russia, and it's really quite amazing, because people have had to go inside because there's been nothing waiting for them outside. They've had to go in. I was shocked by how deep and profound it was. And even that my own film, you know, Ghost, which I was thinking Russia, nobody in Russia knew about anything about ghost or spirituality. Everyone knew Ghost. It was like a big hit. I didn't know it was I didn't even know it showed there. They say it shows every year, 2 or 3 times a year on their, and they only have 1 or 2 channels. So all the kids knew Ghost. And I'm going, wow, who knew that? And there's this extraordinary awareness of little things you do in life reaching out, and all the oppression of life pushing you in. You know, there are these journeys that we're all on, and it takes a willingness to say, I can do this. I can do it. And figuring out what that is and doing it. But to be under the same yoke, the same burden all the time, and not either going in or doing battle with it in your brain, you end up walking around completely miserable. And I had meetings with a lot of people there. And one of the things I discovered was a kind of pervasive depression that was going on, meaning they weren't going in and they weren't going out. They were just going, oh me, oh my. And that's where you don't want to live. That's a terrible space. And you have you have a lot of options to get out of it, including ice cream, including therapy, including taking on a big adventure. And that may just be walking through your day happy. Anyone else?
You know, now it's about 20 years here, Bruce, and there was a time in the early years I said, yes, the infinite supreme being is going to win this. I get it. I love it. I hear it. It has to. I must say yes to this. And then something really fascinating has been happening these last 5 or 10 years, particularly lately. This mind-created self is incredibly stubborn and enduring and wants to win just as much and maybe even more. And it's kind of like a chokehold that it has on me, but I have to admit there's a part of me that wants to stay in the embrace of the thing that insists on my absolute significance, the thing that insists on the achievement seeker. And sometimes I can't tell the difference between, do I not want to extricate myself? Do I not know how? Except we do know how. We learn it every Sunday, and we forget by Wednesday.
Wednesday by the driveway.
By driveway. You get in the car and you put on the Giants, Rams, and then you're back in with the Dodgers later, or other things. That's the fun part of it.
Let me just say quickly, the universe knows that. It totally is on board with that. It knows what you're going through. If you can live through all of that stuff and not hurt people, don't kill anybody, don't steal, the 10 Commandments. Just follow the rules. There will be a point where they start extricating you from all that stuff, and you will find yourself saying, thank you. You are relieved. It may not have worked out the way you wanted it to. It may have worked out better than you imagined. But one way or another, you're extricated. And as you're extricated, there is something inside called liberation. And it's liberation from the you that was so drawn to all this stuff, because it starts to be really less interesting. Not only less interesting, it's like boring. Who cares? Why? What was that about? That's really what you come to. What was that about? I described my career, I think I said it to you the other day, as a resume in a file cabinet. Door closed. It's not even locked. I don't even bother. It's just there. My life is not about what I was, what I dreamt of being, and all that stuff that I was fighting to get. It's about this. And this is amazing. But I had to get old enough, I had to get free enough of all that stuff to be able to see it for what it is and appreciate it. Most people could do that if they were open to that possibility. You will do that. The thing I've been so fascinated by is how much the ego is in service of something greater. The ego is not a bad thing. It needs to do what it does. It needs to be driven. It needs to hunger. It needs to fight. It's so powerful. I was just watched the end of the World Series last night, the one game, and it was like, oh my God, the investment is so unbelievable. From every fan, from every player, the bigness, the overwhelming joy of making something happen, of hitting a home run at the last, you can't believe it could happen. It's like, yes, the universe loves that. It loves it. It's not there saying, oh, you're wasting your time, I couldn't care less. It's totally in it. It doesn't even know what team it's rooting for. It's rooting for everybody. It's just rooting for this thing to happen. And the one pointedness, when everybody in the world, watching TV or in the ballpark, are seeing that one ball moving all together. All those eyes, all those minds focused on one pointedness. That's how it gets there. It happens in all ball games. It's so powerful. And it's not to be hated. It's not to be thrown out as though it's not important. It is important, but there's something bigger. And if you haven't begun to be aware of that it's very late in the game, lying on your deathbed, to figure it out. So this is an opportunity for those of you who decided this is worth looking into to get the picture now. You don't have to change very much of anything. Just like I say, don't kill anybody. Don't rob anybody. You will be fine. And it will take care of you. It will take care of the show. It's wired. It knows what it's about. It knows who we are. It knows us so well. You have no idea. And we are so accountable. You know, every act of love is measured. Everything you do, I described the other day, every time you throw a candy wrapper on the ground, it knows. You know, who are you throwing that there for? Who's supposed to pick up your waste? It knows. It's all additive on some level. So the universe is really deeply engaged in our being. On the other hand, it gets everything you're saying. It knows what you have to go through. So it's not sitting here saying, oh, you're doing the wrong thing and go join an ashram or something. It's saying, live your life. Live your life, but keep seeding it, if you can, with moments of stillness and taking a breath. It comes down to that. If you can meditate once a day, that's really valuable. If you can stop and go, you have no idea how impactful that is. You get that into the system, and when the time comes, they take everything else away. You always have. And the exhalation becomes exquisite. And I was there when my father-in-law died, and I watched the last breaths. That last breath just goes out and out and out and out and out and out, and it doesn't come back. I'm telling you, it carries you somewhere you want to go. So keep working the breath. Remember, if you can sit, and then have a life, and all the stuff it involves. The universe loves it. It really loves it. Rudy used to say that they watch us like they watch the best TV shows in the world. Each one of our lives is like, oh my God, what's going to happen to Andrew tonight? It's really compelling. They really care. Anyway, we're all in it. We're all in it. There's no way out of this, guys, except in. And the way in is not out, it's into infinity and beyond. Okay, good word, stand by. Oh, I'm sorry. There's one more question. Go for it, Nathaniel.
I know it's just maybe because it's the first time trying, but I kept finding with the exercise you were telling us in the beginning, with the two breaths, I would always get to the same point behind my neck, and it felt like I kept hitting a ceiling and jumping over it. And I just found myself like sporadically trying to shake or use one of the things you were saying in the beginning, but I don't know what sits back there that I don't.
We're misaligned. I'll tell you, we're all misaligned. And anybody who goes to a chiropractor or a therapist will tell you, oh my God, there's a lot of stuff there that's not quite the way it should be. And so there's a lot of physical manipulation that can be done to fix alignment, and meditation and spiritual work that moves energy, which is what we're doing, will readjust the alignment. It will work. It will come about. Trust me. You don't have to be afraid of obstruction. The thing called kriyas. Kriyas are these sudden bodily movements when energy goes right through obstruction. It cleans it out. All these channels will get cleaned out. You'll be in a lot of flow when the time comes. Okay, that will be the last word. Thank you.